Hello learners, I Dr. Anandvardhan, a faculty at School of Heritage Research and Management, Ambedkar University, New Delhi, will discuss today the archaeology of the Ganga Valley. We have already discussed the Harappan archaeology in the last two lectures. In general, we can term it as part of post-Harappan archaeology. Often it is termed as Chalcolithic period. That means a stone copper age. I mean to say, after the decline of the great Harappan culture, there was a period in that village cultures with distinct pottery style evolved. Such cultures sprawled over a large part of the Gangetic Valley. That will be comprehensively discussed in this lecture. I would like to tell you about the objectives of the lectures. We will try to understand through this lecture why the study of the archaeology of the Gangetic civilization is important for us. We will also try to know how the settlements in the Ganga Valley were different from those in other parts of India. This lecture also intends to explain about the various kinds of pottery which distinguish the different phases of settlement. We will also try to know about the crops which the farmers raised, and we will understand how major cities in Middle Ganga plain evolved. So let us start with the introduction of the archaeological cultures of Ganga Valley. We have already explained the term archaeology in the preceding unit. In the following sections, we shall be dealing with archaeology of the period between the end of the Harappan civilization and the beginning of Vedic civilization in the Indian subcontinent. This period can be roughly dated from around 1500 BC to 300 BC. This period has been called the formative phase of the classical Indian civilization. This is called the classical Indian civilization because scholars have attributed the origin of many of the modern institutions to the first flowering civilization in the Ganga Valley about 2500 years ago. The Gangetic civilization, as we term archaeologically, is the study of the archaeological finds of the formative phase of the Indian civilization. Historians have unduly emphasized the information found in the literature of this period. This Vedic literature has been extensively used for recreating the history of this period. This has led to a belief that the classical Indian civilization was the exclusive creation of the Vedic Aryans. The study of archaeology will correct this error because we shall be able to understand contributions made by people of different regions and cultures in India in developing this civilization. The Aryans were confined to Punjab in the early Vedic period. This period is roughly dated to 1500 BC to 1000 BC. If we find archaeological evidences for the presence of villages in other parts of the subcontinent in the same time bracket, we can safely call them non-Aryan community. Thus, the study of archaeology will help us to redress the imbalance in the understanding of the classical civilization, which is believed to be the handiwork of the Aryans by many. Gangetic civilization and the Ganga Valley, we need to differentiate between the Gangetic civilization and the Ganga Valley. The Gangetic civilization refers to the civilization which emerged in the Ganga Valley around the 6th century BC and spread over other parts of the Indian subcontinent. In the progress of expansion into areas outside Ganga Valley, the Gangetic civilization picked up several elements from central India and South India. So, what is called the Gangetic civilization is basically an amalgam of the developments of the entire subcontinent. The Ganga Valley refers to the area watered by the river Ganga and its tributaries like Jamuna, Saryu, Koshi. Ganga descends from the Himalayas in the famous Hindu pilgrim center of Haridwar, and after a long journey through the provinces of Uttar Pradesh, Bihar and Bengal, it goes into the Bay of Bengal. In the course of its long journey, it is joined by many tributary streams. The plains formed by the alluvial soil of Ganga river system is home to some of the densest clusters of agriculturists in the world. In this valley are located famous cities like Delhi, Allahabad, Banaras, Patna and Kolkata. The Ganga Valley has a very special place in Indian tradition. It was in this area that the imperial dynasties of Mauryas and Guptas emerged, who created all India empires in their respective periods. It was also in this area that the great religious teachers, philosophers and scholars like Buddha and Mahavira delivered their message of non-violence and peace. This happened after the 6th century BC, a period in that there was surplus agricultural production in entire Ganga Valley due to development in the field of agriculture. The archaeology of Ganga Valley, now we will discuss in detail. The archaeology of Ganga Valley is still in its infancy, and correlation between its material culture, linguistic and literary factors may be differed from the moment. No part of India has been changed as drastically as the Ganga Valley by the encroachment of tillers on the forest. To be able to visualize the situation about 3000 years ago, we shall have to imagine the dense forest in which the Pandavas roamed from the forest not very far away from Delhi, where the Mughals hunted rhinoceros. This is by no means an easy task because it requires mapping of our history of settlement in the entire region. This has not been possible as yet because of the lack of resources and commitment for the past. So, any amateur can discover an unknown settlement or a city in the wide expanse of Ganga Valley. There are thousands of such settlements waiting to be discovered, explored and excavated. A history of settlement in Ganga Valley should be comprehensively studied to understand in entirety how the evolution of Indian civilization has taken place. In the post-Harappan period, what were the settlers of Ganga Valley doing? This is something which is historically very significant. The evidence through limited resources provides us some clues. Remains of many villages and towns have been found in this area by archaeologists. Villages of agriculturists dating back to the 2nd millennium BC have been found in the places like Mahgadha and Koldeva near Prayagraj on the banks of Balan Valley. The discoveries were made by an eminent professor, Professor Govardhan Rai Sarma of Allahabad University. What is interesting is that the inhabitants saw a clear continuity from the preceding hunting gathering mode of life to the evolution of agriculture. This very clearly indicates that the settlers were not Vedic Aryans who are believed to have come to the upper Gangetic Valley in the 4th millennium BC. Evidences for the presence of agriculturists have also been found in Purana Kila, Delhi, Ataranji Kheda, situated in Eta district, Upper Ganga Valley, and Chirand. We have evidences of agriculture from all these places. Archaeologists seemingly devote a lot of time in collecting pieces of broken pots long discarded by their users. This dialogue with the broken swords of the past has mystified many people. Let us try to understand why archaeologists are obsessed with pots, pottery, ceramics. In ancient societies, metal was in short supply, so most of the people used utensils made of terracotta. It was convenient, cheap, and virtually non-repairable when broken. It was made of clay and it was properly baked by continuous heating. So people discarded them. The shapes and size, the techniques of manufacture and the design of the pots kept changing from one period to another. When historians discover them in old settlements, they study the design and the shape, the form of the pottery. It gives them an idea of the food habits and the changes in the life pattern of the people. This helps them in arriving at the relative dating of the period of the use of the pottery. This in turn gives them a clue to the period of the settlement. Pottery is also the most visible sign of the presence of old settlement in an area. After the rains, mud is washed and shards of pots are visible on the surface. Any amateur can look for them while passing through some old town or village of archaeological significance. The settlement in the Ganga Valley have primarily been dated on the basis of the kind of pottery found at different places. The pottery could be dated on the basis of thermoluminescent dating. Also, their location is well stratified in context of relative dating. This means that when a pottery is found at the lowest level of occupation, it is believed to have been used by the earliest settler. This is why it is primarily on the basis of the finds of distinct kind of pottery that archaeologists have dated these settlements in the Ganga Valley. These potteries used as time makers are as follows. Firstly, we will discuss the ochre colored pottery. The ochre color pottery is often called OCP. The ochre color pottery has been found at the earliest level of the settlements in Upper Gangetic Valley. This pottery is made of medium grained clay, underfired and has a orange red color. The ochre color pottery has been found at places which are historically very significant, like Hastinapur in Meerut district of Uttar Pradesh. At Hastinapur, the legendary capital of the Kurus, the ochre color pottery is associated with the earliest evidence for habitation. It has been dated to 1800 BC. This pottery has been reported from several other sites like Bahadurbad, 8 miles west to Haridwar on the upper Ganges, and at Saipai in the Etawah district. The people using ochre color pottery did not know the use of iron. Some of these settlements have yielded hoards of copper tools. As I have earlier explained, it was a period called Chalcolithic period when copper as well as stone tools were used together. The copper tools found in the hoards are axes, sigils, rings, harpoons, spearheads, and strange anthropomorphic objects. Axes up to a foot in length were excellent woodman's tool. The barbed harpoons proclaim extensive food gathering near the fishful rivers, near which they have been found. The rings were probably used as ornaments. The evidence from the ochre color pottery label found in several sites indicates that the settlements were occupied for short durations. People lived in mud houses. They survived by a combination of farming and hunting. They cultivated rice, barley, gram, and khesari, a pulse. Most of the scholars believe that the people who used the ochre color pottery were not Aryans. The painted graveware and the black redware are two distinct styles of pottery from ancient India, reported from several sites of the Gangetic Valley. The painted graveware, generally called PGW in abbreviation, refers to a pottery grey to ash grey in color. It is painted in black and sometimes in a deep chocolate color. It is found in many shapes and sizes, but the most common types are bowls and dishes. This pottery came in use at a time when the ochre color pottery had already gone out of practice. The painted graveware has been provisionally dated between 10th to 7th centuries BC. Some of the well-known settlements belonging to this period are Hastinapur in Meerut district of Uttar Pradesh, Purana Kila in Delhi, Roped in Punjab, Bhagwanpur in Haryana, and Mathura in Uttar Pradesh. The black and red were called BRW in short, is a pottery that refers to a type of pottery that was black in color inside and on the rim. The rest of its body was red in color. It has been found in association with the painted graveware in the upper Ganga Valley. In the sites of this middle and lower Ganga Valley, this pottery was more popular. Many of the people using painted graveware and the black and redware were the first settlers of these sites. This proves that they succeeded in creating village settlements in many new areas. They lived in small villages. The houses were made of wattle and daub. It is indicated by the finds of mud platforms and mud plaster pieces with reed and bamboo impressions. One reason why they were able to settle agricultural villages was possibly the use of iron. Iron spearheads, sickle, and hoe have been reported from several excavations. However, most of the tools continued to be made of copper and bone. The northern black polished ware is the most important pottery reported from Middle Ganga Valley. Archaeologists have worked a lot on this very distinct quality of pottery. We will try to understand why this pottery is so significant and how it is related to second urbanization in Middle Ganga plain. The northern black polished ware called NBPW in short refers to a pottery with glossy surface. The core of this pottery is extremely thin. In addition to black color, it is also found golden, silver, white, pinkish, a steel blue, chocolate and of brown colors. The discovery of some pots made by joining broken pieces indicate that it was an expensive pottery. This use of the pottery has been dated to the period between the 6th century BC to the early Christian century of the Christian era. The pottery of the earlier period was confined to some well-defined geographical regions. The northern black polished ware was the first pan-Indian pottery. It has been discovered in more than 1500 archaeological sites. The find spots include Taxila in Pakistan, Tamluk in Bengal, Amravati in Andhra Pradesh. In the later phases of its use, it was associated with the use of coins, houses of burnt bricks and fortified settlements. It is called the pottery of the rich people. With regard to the growing of the new crops, subsistent base, no significant changes took place. Some new elements were added to the list of cultivated crops. These people used iron on a large scale. In fact, if we compare their range of tools with that of the modern day farmers, there does not seem to be much difference between the two. The nature of agricultural implements did not change much until the beginning of the 20th century. The presence of coinage and the use of many kinds of semi-precious stones like lapis lazuli brought from as far as Badakhshan in Afghanistan indicates long distance trade. The North Indian menu, what it was 3000 years ago. It is an interesting subject for all the learners. What is significant from our point of view is that already in the beginning of the first millennium BC, today's principal crops were grown. Remains of rice, barley, wheat, gram, sesame and cotton are found at various sites of Middle Ganga plain. We may infer crop rotation with wheat and barley dominating the winter harvest and rice the rainy season as today. The presence of cattle, sheep, goat, dog, horse, pig likewise indicate that only few additions were made in the menu in subsequent periods. In fact, the evidence of bones of deer, turtle, fish, leopard, fowl, hippopotamus and elephant might indicate that farmers of those times had a richer variety of non-vegetarian diet than of their modern counterparts. The time bracket for the painted grey ware and black and red ware using village settlements is the same as the one for the later Vedic tradition. Scholars believe that the painted grey ware and black and red ware using people represented a mixture of the farming population of the previous period and the Aryans of the Vedic literature. In conclusion, we can say that there was a long process of cultural evolution based on sedentary agriculture in Middle Ganga plain that can be understood on the basis of the three distinct pottery forms called OCP, PGW and Northern Black Polisware NBPW pottery. Thank you.